Welcome to the beginning of the relaunch of People of the Process. We're starting a new format where I'm trying to include more of other people's stories because it's people of the process, not just me as a singular person. And I'm going to interview two people that are really special to my heart today. These are two guys that I've had the pleasure to know as their RA for the last year. And over that time, God has really been teaching me a lot through my role as the RA. I came in just kind of viewing it as this is an opportunity to do ministry. I don't even know if I'm adequate enough for this, but God really encouraged me through working with these guys, just that there was a way that He wanted to use me in that space. And we had a really awesome year as a whole last year, and I loved it. And these guys were a big part of why. But over the summer, I started to just get this feeling that I was like, I don't know how much I really have to learn from year two. And I just kind of was like, starting to get a little cocky, and I was just like, I mean, I got this in the bag. Everything was super easy last year. But then, as it often happens, when we get cocky, that's when God reminds us that we're not fully in control. And this verse has really been sticking on my heart lately, so I wanted to share it. And so it says, in the same way, you are younger, submit yourself to your elders. All of you, clothe yourself with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. This semester, God has really been humbling me a ton. But at the same time, He's also been encouraging me. And these guys are two guys who have been a big encouragement to me. And through working with them and the other guys in the hall, I've been learning a lot. I hope that you can learn something from this conversation as well, and that you'll hear some encouragement of some great things in their story, but also just like every other guy, things that they are working on and God is doing in them. I want to introduce you to my friend Funky.
Guys. I'm Funky, uh, and it's super cool that I get to share my testimony on this platform with Noah. Super cool.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. I remember when I first met Funky, I saw him, I was checking people in, and I was just like, I looked up and down and I was like, yes, we're going to win all of the athletic events and competitions for the dorm building. We didn't win all of them, but that's not what really mattered because I realized he's more than just a big dude. He's just a guy who really loves others and loves Jesus really well. You want to tell us your story?
Yeah, uh, I can start from the beginning. So I grew up in like a semi-Christian home.
Mm-hmm.
When I was first born, my parents, it was like the traditional, oh, we're Catholic because that's what my grandparents
Mm-hmm.
were into, and they kind of just followed suit, but they didn't really believe any of it. And it all changed like when I was around like 7 or 8. My grandfather, my dad's dad, got cancer and ended up passing away from cancer. And my dad really started to question like, why did this happen? What is this all about? What happens when we die? And that led to him getting saved when I was around 8, I believe. And that kind of, I don't know, pushed everybody forward to try to figure out what this is all about and to learn more about this. Um, Me being a young kid, I didn't understand it. I don't think I could really comprehend it. I still don't think people can comprehend it
Mm-hmm.
fully. So I was just kind of going through the motions. I went to Sunday school because they had free food. They had the little Debbie cakes and everything. And dude, I would eat so many of those. And the church had like a basketball court and they had a game room. It was just a lot of fun to be at, but I just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't I wasn't enjoying like what they were talking about, the real main
Yeah.
reason why we were there. So I get through like, oh, it's later middle school, like 7th or 8th grade. Uh, get my first electronic device. It was the iPod Touch,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where I don't know, my life kind of started to go downhill a little bit. I think like every young male out there, you get introduced to pornography, and I think I was 11, 12 at the time. Shocked, kind of disgusted at first, but then that was always in the back of my mind, that curiosity, like, well, what if I look at this now? If I watch this now? And it just continued to evolve from there, from pictures to videos and stuff. And it was just a downward spiral at that point. And around the same time of seventh and eighth grade, I had 2 years of, you could probably call it sexual harassment and sexual abuse. One from somebody in the school, and another one from a student in the eighth grade.
Yeah.
So I didn't really evaluate it or take into account what actually happened until probably 2 years ago. You kind of just push it into the back of your mind. You try to forget about it, and you laugh it off. You make jokes and everything about it. But I think really deep down, it caused a lot of issues mentally with me. How I connect with women, how I interact with different people.
Yeah.
And that, I think those experiences kind of shut me down when it came to talking with other people and trying to connect with the opposite gender. It's always very difficult for me to do that stuff. So after the eighth grade, you go into high school, and that's like a very big culture change. I think everybody can agree to that.
Yeah.
Where there's so many new groups of people. And with my high school, we had 2 middle schools in like a 1 mile radius. And everybody from those middle schools kind of joined together in that one high school. So you get to meet all these people from this other school that you had no idea existed.
Yeah.
And you make new friends, which is awesome. But for me, I got involved in the wrong crowd. I got introduced to friends that were doing drugs, they were partying, and they're just getting into some bad stuff.
Yeah.
And I ended up falling into those things as well. I sold drugs for a year, and I was out partying. I was out having fun. I'm like, oh man, this is the life. You're making tons of money. You got all the friends. You're Mr. Popular in school, and I thought my life was fulfilled. And I always tell people this. Like that feeling when like you're hungry, like you're really hungry, but you don't know what you want to eat.
Yeah.
I had that in my heart, where like I was hungry for something, and I thought all this stuff was going to be able to satisfy that hunger, but it just couldn't. I was always hungry at the end of the day, and I didn't know what I wanted. And still at this point, I was going to Sunday school and to church every Sunday, being the good boy, and trying to do my best with that. And I remember going, I think it was a month into my freshman year of high school. My parents said, "Hey, we're going to move churches. We're going to go try one down the street from us." I'm like, okay, whatever. That's fine. So we go there Sunday. I meet the youth pastor. Awesome dude. That guy he's made such an impact on my life. He's just an amazing person. But we walked through the doors, and they started talking about the youth group on Wednesdays. And I'm like, yeah, I'll consider it. My parents, when we got home, they're like, hey, you don't have to go if you don't want to. If you want to try it out, you're more than welcome to. I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. And I think that choice I made right there changed my life forever.
Yeah.
Because I went there, and I was never, it was so loving and so welcoming. Everybody just hugs and shaking hands, high fives, everything. I'm like, oh wow, these people are kind of cool but kind of weird. Like this is so much different than anything else I've ever experienced. So I had my one life of in school with those friends and doing drugs and partying and selling drugs. And then I had the other side where Wednesday nights I would go and play basketball with everybody, and I guess kind of listen to Bible verses, like, yeah, whatever, let's just go back to playing basketball. And I don't remember specifically when it was the day, but I remember listening to one of the messages in the youth group, and it connected with me. It was different than anything I heard. And I remember going home and I just wanted to drop everything and figure out what this was all about. And so I called the guys at my school, like, hey, I'm out. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And they were like, oh, you can't do that. If you do that, we're going to find you, man. We're going to do stuff to you. We're going to find your family. We're going to do stuff to them. And thank goodness they never did anything.
Yeah.
But then I still had that hunger. I still had that emptiness in my soul. I didn't know what could fill it.
Mm.
And I remember, like, man, I just got to, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I was ready to just, just kill myself and just pop a whole bottle of ibuprofen or hang myself on my fan or whatever. And I remember just being so sad every night. And I remember multiple nights just on my knees and just crying. And I remember I called out to God one night. I'm like, I need help.
Mm.
And it was like the best hug I've ever got.
Yes.
And all I could, it was like a voice inside my head. He's like, I got you, man. It's okay. I got you. And it wasn't like an instant save the moment like everybody else has.
Mm.
Like, we're like, oh my gosh, I gotta turn my life around right now. But it was more gradual.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to make the switch. So it was slowly like reading my Bible and slowly talking
Mm.
to people. And I got more involved in that Wednesday night group.
Yeah.
And I became a very big influence on everybody there.
Mm-hmm.
And going into sophomore year, I think towards the end of it actually, I got baptized. And that was super special too. Cool. Super
Yeah.
special too, because my dad got to do it. I remember it so I remember it so clearly because my church, what they would do is like every fifth Sunday of the month they would do a big like worship night, and they would do baptisms then.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was that night. It was my turn. I get to sit in the tub, and they do like a little video, like why are you being saved and everything. And
Okay.
I remember my dad. He said, "You, you always ask, proud of you, and I am so. You always ask if I'm proud of you,
Mm-hmm.
and I am so proud of you right now."
Awesome.
He baptized me, and that was like that was one of the coolest things in the world.
Yeah.
And I think about that moment once a week at least.
Mm.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And so I go throughout high school, big Christian guy in high school. I'm reading my Bible in the lunchroom and in the library and in class and everything. I'm praying for people. And I mean, my school was very diverse. We had like 3 mosques within like a half a mile
Yeah.
radius of the school. So there were a ton of Muslim kids that went there. It was super cool talking with them and like sharing the gospel with them. Um, but then high school comes to an end, graduate, go to my freshman year of college. Bad, bad spot. It was a big party school. And obviously, I didn't do that, so all my roommates and everything were partying.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want to be a part of that. So after my freshman year, I left. I did a year at community college. And then one day, I'm sitting in church before it starts on Instagram, and I see revival at Asbury. I'm like, oh, what's this all about? So I look on like Google and everything. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So right after church, actually, backtrack real quick.
Yeah.
Look at it on Google. I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. and it's like somebody grabbed my heart and like pulled it like
Mm.
out of my chest. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this means something. So I go straight home after church. My dad's in the garage. My dad, I gotta go. I gotta go to Kentucky. There's this thing at this school. I don't know what it is, but it's like somebody grabbed my heart and pulled it. I know I gotta go. He's like, okay. Told my mom the same thing. She's like, okay. So 2 days later, I'm on the road to a state I'd never been to a school I've never heard of,
Yeah.
to see some random thing that's going on at this school's chapel.
Yeah.
And I am so glad I made that decision too, because I wouldn't be here at Asbury. I wouldn't know you.
Mm.
I wouldn't know all my friends here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be given the opportunities that I've been given. And it's been life changing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And then so that takes you back about a 2 years, right? Because that's the you were here all last school year,
yeah.
and you saw how did you see God move since that big encounter sending you to Asbury for the first
I mean, really deepening my faith. I mean, maybe deepening isn't the right word, but the knowledge I have now is so much more vast than anything I could have
time?
gotten back home, because you're introduced to all these people that know Jesus and believe Jesus is the Lord. And you get so many different people that studied so many different topics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just fascinating to learn about all these things that you wouldn't get to really learn about if you were just kind of sitting at home reading the Bible all by yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Faith is supposed to be done in community,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the biggest blessings of being here at Asbury.
Yeah.
Just when you're intentional, and you meet guys that are intentional with you, beautiful things happen. One thing that you talked about is you said when you were first coming to the faith, it wasn't a one-time quick thing. It was a gradual process, and that it was growing and steps were taking. What would be some things that you would say that God has really just gradually been doing in your life recently? What is He teaching you?
I mean, it's always been patience. I
Yeah.
feel like He's always been working on my patience with people, with situations, because I know I don't have a short temper, but like I have a very short, I don't know, fuse for like,
It's the New
no,
Yorker in
yeah,
you.
the New Yorker. I'm from New York. Oh, I know, boo. But like if like somebody's doing something wrong or like being annoying, I got a very short
Yeah,
fuse for that. So I definitely think patience
yeah,
is one thing. Um, I think loving people too,
yeah,
being gentle with people.
yeah,
Um, I've always been a very caring person and willing to talk to really anybody if they need it.
mm-hmm.
And I think that also has has been something he's been trying to work on me with.
Yeah,
Just new people with new problems and listening to their stories and listening to what's going on in their life, that they just got to talk to somebody.
yeah,
I'm always here to listen
yeah,
and to hear what's going on in somebody's
yeah.
life.
There's always an open spot in his couch.
There always is.
Yes, and so that you would say patience and just learning how to love people better is
Yeah.
really what God's teaching you, and what God's trying to grow you in this season.
Yeah.
And on People of the Process, we like to talk about how it's a process. We're always learning that there's something new that God is working on in us and inviting us into, along with celebrating the awesome things like the great testimony that he just shared with us. So I'm gonna end this interview with him by just praying over him, just over what this next season looks like, and then I'm gonna bring in our next guest. All right. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for Brendan, Lord. Thank you for just giving him the boldness to just to share his story, Lord, because I know that there's going to be people watching this who see parts of their story in it, Lord, and can be encouraged. I just want to encourage, I just want to pray that you continue to encourage and strengthen him, Lord, because he loves people really well. And I've seen him grow in patience in so much in this season, Lord, and I pray that you continue to help him grow in that. Uh, when I first met him, I just could tell from very early on that he just was like a giant teddy bear, Lord. And he just knows how to He just knows how to care for people, Lord. And I pray that we can care for him as well as he cares for us, that we will support him and love him in this season, and that you will continue just to refine him and grow him. In your name, amen. Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks.
being on
Thanks
here,
for
bro.
having me.
Yeah. My second guest is someone that also is awesome and means a ton to me. And I want to introduce you to Trayton Consalvi. He is a great friend of mine, and he's also a great photographer. Quick little plug, no ads, but this is basically an ad. That this guy, he took my proposal photos, and they came out beautiful. And he's just continuing to grow in that talent and in ways of just honoring God through his photography. So check out his photography. I'll tag him in this video and check it out. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today is his story and what God has been doing in his life. So, without further ado, Trayton, take it away.
Thanks for the shout out and the awesome intro. Yeah, well, my name's Trayton. I guess I'll just start like Funke did. Very beginning of my life story. I was born in Oregon. Big part of the story is I've moved around a lot as a kid. Well, I'll just throw that out there. I think I've lived in like 11 different states. Moved around a bunch. So just so I don't have to stay all the states and you guys get too lost. Um,
You're good. You're good, bro. It's all good.
anyways, so yeah, I grew up. Mom and dad. Um, we lived in Oregon and moved to Idaho. We had when I was like 4. Um, as I got older, my mom started looking for a church to go to, and so naturally in Idaho we found the Mormon church. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we started going there. My parents got baptized right away, and then I got baptized when I was 8, and uh, really started to build a community there.
Yeah.
Big church was a big part of my life because back at home, a lot of things weren't as well as they could have been. A lot of time spent in my room, a lot of heavy discipline, and so I always valued the relationships I had at church a lot. So I would go to their activities, and you know I when I became of age, I got the priesthood. We had moved to Nebraska by that time, so I started doing that. A couple conversations with the bishop, and started to build, um, started getting to leadership positions in the church. And I remember, lying during the interview and being like, "Yeah, I have a really strong testimony in Joseph Smith, and really see God moving in my life." But like deep down, I was struggling with a lot of things back at home. Um, I was struggling with creating relationships just because of how difficult home life was,
Mm.
being isolated from my family. Um, so yeah, I began kind of building up like this false persona in the church that gave me a lot of comfort.
Mm.
Um, so as that went on, I just kind of you know faked it till I made it in the church and enjoyed the precious times that I had with the youth groups and stuff like that. And fast forward a couple years, say like sophomore year of high school, um, I was living in Oklahoma at the time, and that's when family life started getting really difficult. Um, I was forced to wear like black sweatpants and white t-shirts to school, and just a lot of heavy emotional trauma. Um, and it was a lot, and I was constantly in my room um, for disciplinary disciplinary reasons.
Mm.
And so there was a lot of weight in my chest, and um, I had tried a couple times to kill myself. I just wasn't strong enough, and I was really I don't know, I was very very lost at that time.
Mm.
And the Mormon Church, we had by that time my family had decided we didn't want to go to church right after COVID, and so I didn't really have a community So yeah, I ended up deciding I wanted to go to a military school. And so I, you know, packed my stuff up, and went over to a small town, Pryor, Oklahoma, for a place called Thunderbird Challenge Program, and um, shaved my head, started working out, obviously, as I had to, but they offered a church trip every single Sunday, and the big catch line was you got a bag of candy every time you went. Being at military school, you're always hungry, so you take any calories you get. And so I was like, you know what, I'll go for the candy. So I ended up going, and I don't think my faith really grew a lot there. It wasn't like a big, oh my gosh, there's a God, like, because I grew up religious as a Mormon, but there was more of an authentic. It was more authentic. I could like, especially with the worship. I really connected with the worship, um, and I found myself, you know, starting the very like the embers of connecting with God. So yeah, I was there for 6 months. I went to every single church, got my candy, um, and yeah, life was great. I graduated the program. I was really proud of myself, and
Mm.
really optimistic that things at home would be a lot better. Um, and so I got home, and things were good for about 2 weeks. Um, I started to engage with my family more a little bit instead of being isolated, and um, got a job, started going back to public school, and everything seemed great. And then things went downhill very quickly. Um, and that's when I started wearing, the black sweatpants, white t-shirts, and um, again, and um, I don't know. My parents had found a boarding school in Kentucky, uh, Oakdale, and it was a punishment for me. Like, if you don't stay abide by these guidelines, we're going to send you to this Christian boarding school, and you're going to be miserable, and you're going to be away from us. And that's what we want because we don't want you around. Um, and so, I mean, I didn't necessarily enjoy my family life there, but I didn't know what else was out there, and I was scared. And so, I mean, I doubled down on my stuff, made sure I didn't break any of um, those guidelines. And about 2 weeks after that threat had been put out there, I hadn't broken any of the rules, but my parents were like, "You're going
Um,
there," and that was my first like big breakdown I've ever had because I didn't. That was like the end of my childhood. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was very alone. I was being shipped across the country from Oklahoma to Kentucky, taking the Greyhound bus, and I was scared. I was very, very scared. Um, and when my dad dropped me off, he's like, "This is the last time you're ever gonna see me."
mm,
So I, I mean, I've always been a very optimistic person, luckily. So I kind of just like, you know what, this is gonna happen, and anyways, this is gonna happen, and I'm here. I'm here. There's nothing I can do to leave this place. I am at a Christian boarding school in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, in the mountains, and the smallest town. But the town is like 30 minutes away, and it's like the smallest
mhm.
town you've ever seen. um, so yeah, I was in Kentucky. Um, I finally got a break from that very broken aspect of family life, and it being a Christian school, we had church, and I was still very confused about God because I was, you know, I was in a church, and I didn't realize it was cold at the time. I was in a church, and I was trying to like pour myself into this church, and I got rest, but I didn't get the comfort and the, you know, there's a God up there that loves me, that wants to know my concerns and my questions. So I was just a kid, just in this very broken world, um, without any guidelines. And so I started going to church, and I was very curious. I wanted to know, okay, what makes these guys different from the Mormons? And I will say, within a month, I could very much tell the difference, the comfort, the warmth that came from just simple church service.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went my entire junior year there, and it wasn't until the last 3 weeks. Um, there was this church service. There was a teacher that I really connected with, um, and I started calling him like my dad, my mom, just because that's kind of a relationship we already had. And anyways, my dad was leading worship, or I'll just call him Mr. Pack because that's who he was then. He was leading worship, and he was singing a song called "My Jesus," and was struggling with like a relationship at that time, which was definitely not needed upon
Mm-hmm.
family aspect, and just a lot of hurt. And I just felt like no one wanted me, and I just remember just like the biggest like physical hug I've ever felt, and it just like covered me, and I was like, dang, like this God is real. I need to get baptized, and so that's what I did. I mean, I jumped headfirst into it, and I was like, I'm gonna get baptized, and so I got baptized, and my anger issue that I used to have like was just disappeared. I had no more fierce anger in me. I was very calm and more the person I am today. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. I've been baptized. I mean, my parents are gonna be so happy. So it just so after that school year ended, I ended up having to go home um, for the summer. And after I got home, my parents didn't want me there. It was very obvious. They were waiting until I turned 18 just to kick me out. Um, but I was on fire for Christ. I was like, man, this guy's really cool. I wonder if my parents will see this change that's happened because of this. And they didn't give me the chance. And um, I don't know, a year went by. It got really, really bad again. I was living in the basement. Could I could go and leave as I pleased for a little bit, and then they kind of locked me in, wouldn't let me go to school, and it seemed worse than it ever had before. And then me and my dad and my mom got in a fight, and my dad ended up picking me up and just throwing me over the fence. Like
Mm-hmm.
actually throwing me over the fence. And I mean, I was confused. I was like, man, this Jesus guy. I mean, I felt that
Yeah.
why would this happen? And so I went to live with a friend because I didn't know what to do, and started smoking weed. I was high every single day because I just
Um,
yeah, I was very hurt. I
yeah.
was very lost. Um, Smoking weed, and doing hero cards, and just like all sorts of different things. And the devil definitely knew he'd get me there, and I let him. And there was just one night I was walking out. It was snowing. I just didn't want to be at their house because I was just so lost as a person. And um, yeah, I didn't know what to do. I called Mr. Pack, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And he's like, well, we're living in Illinois right now, and I'll talk to Rebecca, and we'll work this out. And so this connection that I made all those years ago with a family that was only there for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were there for the 1 year I was there, and they almost didn't even go, and I almost didn't go, and God had just through the madness orchestrated this beautiful thing that I have now, where because because I went to this boarding school and made this connection, I was able to be saved from this lowest point in my life where
Yeah.
I was looking to end it all. I was going to jump in front of a car. And I was just like, I'll call him. So, it's just, yeah, I called them, and within a month and a half, and then they moved me in, adopted me as their own, and I've been living with them ever since. And life has not been perfect since then, but um, I can definitely say, even though I wasn't necessarily willing for there to be a God, there was a God that
Yeah.
was willing to carry me and make sure I was cared for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my testimony is just that there is without a doubt a God out there that is orchestrating our lives through insane chaos, and we can't even wrap our mind around the probability of the gifts and blessings He puts in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And so in this last year and a half that I've got to know you, I've seen you just really grow in your faith and just really dive deeper. And it's just been so encouraging to watch. You came in as the freshman who was just kind of like, first you were really quiet, and then you were crazy and wouldn't stop talking. But it was very, at first it was a very like goofy, shallow sense. But it's been an honor over this last year and a half to really get to know who you are on a deeper level, and just to see the way that God is just continuing to go deeper and deeper into your heart, and the way that your heart has just grown for others. I think to just over this semester, just earlier this semester when we had a a friend in the hospital, and you texted me and were like, "We need to go visit him." And you were telling me as the RA that that's what we need to do, not me as the RA being like, hey, we got to go check on that guy. And that was just such a reminder of just your heart for people is so strong. And you just love and care for guys who you can see yourself in, guys who you can see just need a little extra love.
Dude, I thank God that I went through the things I did because it has shaped me to a person I would have never become. It has given me such a big heart for those struggling around me, and just it amazes me sometimes the amount of love God has because the amount I'm able to love
Yeah.
when I should be some you know
Yeah.
stiff necked person out there. I'm able to love people.
Yeah. So, other than just continuing to teach you how to love people better, what is something else that God has really been just teaching you and showing you in this season?
Yeah, especially in the last couple months, God has really been helping me redefine how I see Him because you know, I've always trusted Him,
Mm.
um, especially with the last 3 years of my life. Trusted Him and knew that there was a God,
Yeah.
and but I really didn't understand what it was like to have a relationship and the attributes of God.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, lately I've been really um, wrestling with the idea that I can ask God for things,
Mm.
and He will provide a way. It's not just waiting for God
Yeah.
to give those things to you. Um, I think a really cool. I've had a really cool like mini miracles that have happened over the last week. Um, just engaging with a small group, and though I though I'm struggling with my faith, um, not from a is Jesus real, but like understanding my faith.
Yeah.
Um, I've really been able to lean in with those guys and ask questions and hear what they're going through. Um, I mean, one example, um, we always close out with a prayer, and there's this guy, Charlie.
Yeah. Shout out
um,
Charlie.
he prayed for me like last year and gave me like a little image, and it really helped me with what I was struggling. And I was like, man, it'd be so cool if like this season's been a little rough for me, and I would love a picture from God, kind of help me understand. And I mean, we start praying, and all of a sudden, Charlie's like, I see a fish jumping out of the water, and you know that's not necessarily comfortable for fish. It will return to the water eventually, but it needs to be up where it is in the air
Yeah.
for a while. And I mean, it was just so cool because that wasn't even a prayer; it was just a thought. Like, God,
Yeah.
please, that would be really cool. And it turns out that God had placed the same thing on his heart. He was like, because I told him afterward, and he was like, "Man, thank you so much for praying for me." He's like, "You know what? I actually had the thought of that same time I prayed for you and that vision or picture I gave for you." And I was like, "Man, God, if you have something to say to this kid, like, please." And so it was very cool to see, you know, my God's will matching my own and like providing just the small little boost of yes, I'm still here, I'm still
Yeah.
watching over you, and you're still on the right path. I've also had a really cool experience tonight.
Yeah.
um,
This is crazy. Right before he walked in here.
yeah, literally like 2 hours ago. But I was walking around playing Pokemon Go. Shout out to my Pokemon Go players, you're awesome. Love the game. Anyways, playing Pokemon Go with my buddy, and it's snowing outside. It's nice, very enjoyable. First snow of the year. And we were walking down on the sidewalk, and on the sidewalk across from us, there's a guy um, with an umbrella walking, and me and my buddy. I mean, I see him as being aware while you're in public, but I see him, and I'm like, okay, cool. And me and my buddy go to do something. We slow down a little bit, and all of a sudden he's like right behind us. And I was like, how did you get from here to there without me seeing? Like that was very, very strange. And so yeah, he's like, hey, do you guys feel loved? And I was like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm with my friend right now. I mean, of course I feel loved. And he's like, do you want to hear kind words? And I was like, me and my buddy we looked at each other and we're like, I mean, sure. And very, very skeptical at first. And he starts talking. He's like, man, I grew up in a household. My dad beat me. My dad was an alcoholic. He would beat me and my mother. And I am hurt from that. I've been hurt from that. And I've felt so lonely because of that. And then I found God. And God has changed my life and has put a purpose in my heart. And I know you have had similar struggles. And he was looking at me and he's like, I know you feel hurt and lonely and you're worried that you're gonna be lonely forever. And I just want you to know that your wife and your children will not have to go through the same things you went through as a kid.
Yeah.
And that just like I was very taken back at that because it was so personal. And I was thinking about it because I had this with you and I was like, man. And he didn't stop there. He was like, the business that you're going to pursue, you're going to share God's word. And obviously, I mean, my close friends know I'm pursuing one, possibly two businesses. And it was just crazy because I've been wrestling with God of, man, where am I supposed to, am I in the right place? Am I doing the things that are gonna bring your kingdom forward? Am I like chasing my own will? I'm lost. And like I've been very like diving deep into scripture, um, more than I normally do.
Yeah.
But no, like trying to figure out, is this where I'm supposed to be? And that, I mean, as far as I'm aware, that was just a clear sign of I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and God is not going to let me walk astray as long as I still want to be with in His walk.
Yeah.
So that was just God answering a prayer over the last couple months.
And that really has been like something you've been processing. And even like you didn't touch on this part, but I remember through Gather this semester and some other conversations, there had been a few passages where we had read that talked about generational curses and like and the sin of the consequence of the sin of the father hating the next generation. And you were really struggling with that, and you were just with the pain of stuff that your dad had done, and feeling the weight on yourself. But I think it's so beautiful that this guy, that he affirmed in you, that he said the things that your father did will not make it to the next generation. Your wife and kid won't experience that. So that's just another way that God is really just loving you and encouraging exactly what you need in the exact moment. And so with your business, with the promise that that hurt that's on you won't be on your children, that's just so many beautiful ways that God is moving. And I'm just so excited about what God is doing in your life, bro. Like I'm genuinely so excited. I mean, hoping that we get to work together this summer. You know, there's all these different plans in the works, but whatever the plan looks like, I just have such a sense that God is going to move and He's going to continue to be faithful and take care of you, just like He has all these steps of the way. I want to pray for you, and then we're going to wrap up this episode. So, dear Lord, I just want to thank you. Thank you for Trayton, Lord. I just want to thank you that you have just been faithful to him, even in the times where it might have felt like he was alone and when he was just abandoned, but that you were there with him, Lord, and that you showed up and you wrapped your arms around him, Lord, that you made it so that that car did not end up taking his life, that there was a phone call that sparked this journey, Lord, that led him here to Asbury and led him into connection with me and these other guys, because the impact that we have seen you have on his life and he has on ours has just been such an encouragement, Lord. And I pray for people who have a similar story, who may worry about the effects of their parents' pain on them and don't want it to go to the next generation, Lord, that you break off generation of all hurt and curses and sins, Lord, that you will just free those people like you are freeing Trayton, Lord. And I just pray that you continue to give Trayton vision and clarity about what the future looks like and how the patience to sit in the presence while also looking forward expectantly to the future. In your name, amen. And thank you guys for joining us. This experience of recording the People of the Process podcast for the first time was something that made me super excited and left me leaving in a much more excited position than when I stepped into this studio. And I just pray that it encouraged you and made you excited about how your story could encourage someone else and remind you of how faithful God has been in your life. I want to challenge you, share that with someone else this week, because they need that too. Until next time, join us as People of the Process.